We are leaving the Amish community today.
We're gonna start a new life.
We are leaving the Amish community today.
We're going to start a new life outside.
On an ordinary morning in a community where the rules of daily life have not changed in generations, one family made a decision that would alter every single person in it forever. 12 children woke up that day knowing how to harness a horse, recite scripture, and live without electricity, but not one of them knew how to navigate a school enrollment form or a hospital insurance system. What followed was not a clean break or a triumphant escape, but a cascade of separate losses, separate freedoms, and separate questions that each child would have to answer entirely alone. Think about what it means to leave the only world you have ever known, not as a single adult with a bag and a bus ticket, but as a family of 14 people, each carrying a different version of the same grief. The youngest children had no framework for what was being lost, and the oldest ones understood it too well. Every object left behind, every neighbor who turned away, every familiar prayer said for the last time in community. Those weren't abstractions, they were the architecture of a life. What could possibly make a family choose this, knowing the cost would be paid by children who never voted for it? That morning, around a table that looked like every other morning, the answer was already decided. But no one had spoken it out loud yet. Most people imagine a single breaking point, a confrontation, a punishment, a door slammed shut for the last time. But for most Amish families who leave, the real story is quieter and far harder to name. It builds across years, sometimes across a whole generation, in the space between what a person believes and what the Ordnung demands they perform. The Ordnung is the unwritten code of conduct that governs every community, and no two communities hold it exactly the same way. One district forbids rubber tires on farm equipment. Another allows a telephone in the barn but never inside the house. What breaks one family free might be the very rule another family has lived comfortably under for decades. For some parents, the fracture begins not with their own doubt, but with watching a child struggle. A son with a learning difference the community has no language for. A daughter whose questions the bishop cannot answer. Theological doubt arrives more slowly, like water finding a crack in stone, until one morning the father opens the Bible and cannot reconcile what he reads with what he has been told to obey. A decision that looks sudden from the outside has almost always been years in the making, and it rarely belongs to one person alone, which is exactly what makes the question of who actually walks out the door so complicated. Decision to leave rarely moves through a family of 12 like a single wave. It fractures along every fault line the family already had. Parents who have made their peace with the outside world cannot make it for a 17-year-old who has only ever known this one. Older children, the ones who have already been baptized, face something the youngest ones don't. Leaving means formal excommunication, a severing that the church makes permanent and public. A 10-year-old climbs into a van because her parents say so, but her oldest brother might not climb in at all. The youngest children don't grieve what they're losing because they don't yet have the words for what it is. They will find those words later in a different language, in a different world, and the grief will arrive on a delay. Some families negotiate a kind of slow dispersal. One parent goes first, then the children follow in stages, and the household dissolves across months rather than a single morning. What looks from the outside like a family leaving is often, from the inside, a family already coming apart. And somewhere in that unraveling stands a teenager who understands both worlds just enough to feel fully at home in neither. Every system they encounter assumes a history they don't have. No credit score, no social security paper trail, no school records, no insurance cards. Just a family standing at a counter trying to explain something most clerks have never been asked to process. Opening a bank account requires documents that require other documents, and each missing piece sends them back to the start. Enrolling children in school means navigating grade placements built around standardized benchmarks the kids were never taught to meet. Driver's licenses demand written tests full of road signs that meant nothing in a world without cars. Healthcare forms ask about prior diagnoses, prior medications, prior everything. And the honest answer, again and again, is none. What makes this more than inconvenience is that these systems aren't just bureaucratic hurdles. They're designed for people who grew up inside them. The parents carry the weight of each failed attempt visibly because they chose this, and the children are watching. And the children are absorbing something the parents can't fully shield them from. The feeling that the outside world was built for someone else. And they arrived too late to be that person. How each child metabolizes that feeling depends almost entirely on how old they were when the gate closed behind them. 12 children leave the same community, but not one of them leaves the same world. The 5-year-old barely knows what she's lost. She adapts the way water does, filling whatever shape she's given. But the 16-year-old carries the full weight of a formed identity, a faith he was raised to treat as the only true one, and friendships he'll likely never recover. Age isn't just a number here, like it's the measure of how deeply Amish life has already written itself into a person. Children who were schooled only in Pennsylvania Dutch face a classroom where the language on the board might as well be a foreign country. Some of them are reading below grade level, not because they're slow, but because their education was never designed to prepare them for this world. Walking into a public school mid-year, wearing the wrong clothes, not knowing a single reference the other kids share, that's not just awkward, it's a kind of grief. Each child's temperament shapes how that grief lands. One goes quiet, one goes wild, one clings to the old prayers like a rope. The community they left wasn't just a place. It was a living support structure, and now that structure is simply gone. What the parents understand, and the younger children don't yet, is that some of what was lost can never be rebuilt outside those fences. Children carry confusion, but the parents carry something heavier. The knowledge that they chose this for everyone. Every sibling, parent, and lifelong friend they left behind still wakes up inside the world they walked away from. Some communities practice shunning formally, cutting contact as a matter of doctrine and discipline, but many do not. And the line between grief and exile depends entirely on where you left and why. Even without shunning, the silence that follows a departure can feel indistinguishable from one. The parents now carry skills that shaped entire households: carpentry, farming, preservation, construction. But those skills arrive in the outside world without credentials, without a resume, without a single reference an employer can call. Identity for someone raised Amish is not separate from community. It is the community, and leaving means rebuilding the self from materials you were never given. They made this choice knowing their children would inherit both the freedom and the fracture. Whether any of what was severed can ever grow back, that question does not disappear with distance. Not every door that closes stays closed, and not every family that leaves the community disappears from it entirely. Some former Amish parents find that the shunning softens over years, that a letter gets answered, that a grandmother holds a grandchild she was told she would never meet. The silence between a family and the community they left is rarely as absolute as the rules demand it to be. Children who grew up Amish carry something that doesn't translate. A way of moving through work, through quiet, through the weight of a shared meal that the outside world doesn't quite hold. Some of those children, now adults, eventually walk back through the gate they once left behind. They return not because the outside world broke them, but because the community offered something they couldn't name until it was gone. What does it mean to belong to two worlds and feel fully at home in neither? That question doesn't resolve, it just becomes the shape of a life. What this family carried out of the community wasn't just clothing and children. It was every version of themselves they might become. Some of those versions found footing in the outside world, built careers, discovered freedoms they hadn't known to want. Others carried a grief that no new life could fully absorb, a longing for the particular quiet of a world that knew exactly who you were. 12 children means 12 different reckonings with the same departure. 12 different answers to a question none of them chose to ask. The community they left still rises before dawn, still gathers at long tables, still holds something that is genuinely worth holding. And the family that left holds something too, harder to name, harder to share, but real in its own weight. So maybe freedom isn't simply more choices on a longer road. Maybe it's the courage to live inside a question that never fully closes.